I can say that I went to go see Sinners as a believer, and here's my biblical take on it. In PSA, since I'm not one of those type, I'm going to spoil the movie. So if you really want to watch the movie, then scroll, don't watch this video. And before I get started, I can say yes, God had led me to watch this movie. Before all the religious saints come into my comments, it's, we have to stop trying to demonize everything that we don't understand and just start looking at God from a more wider point of view instead of looking at him from our limited religious understanding. And if it's your personal conviction that you feel like God didn't tell you to go see it, then by all means. But this video is specifically for the ones that did see it and want to get a biblical understanding of what God revealed to me as I watched it. And not just a biblical understanding as I watched it, but a biblical understanding from a musician, from an entertainer's point of view, because this message was so profound. So let's get to it. I can say from watching this movie, the biggest theme and the biggest lesson in which God taught me, and God spoke this to my spirit, was that pleasure feels like freedom until you're caught up in it. Let me repeat that for you one more time. Pleasure feels like freedom until you're caught up in it. I can't tell you how many times I've been caught up in the mix of pleasure, how I've been caught up clinging onto the things of this world, thinking it was going to satisfy me, thinking it was going to fill an empty void that only God can fill, just to realize that the things I was clinging onto couldn't fulfill me. The things I was clinging onto was the very exact things that were leading me and sending me straight to my death. And I think there's a beautiful lesson we can learn all this. As you start off the movie, it starts off the movie as, preacher boy is, walking right into the church after a very, very gruesome night. And as he walks into the church of his father's church, because he's a preacher's kid, he walks into the church with the guitar in his hand. And the one thing that really stood out to me is how, his father, who was the preacher, told him to come up forth and told him to hand him the guitar. The guitar was something that preacher boy, hanged on to. It's something that he clinged on to. His gift, his passion was all that he knew. Just to find out at the end of the movie that he still clung on to the guitar. As the scene moves forward and it goes right to the beginning, you see that preacher boy and his father's having a conversation. And in this conversation, his dad calls him to read a Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 10:13. It basically says, no temptation has overcome you, but that God is faithful. He won't allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. And there's another profound thing that his father told him. And that was that before he left the church, because it seemed like to me that preacher boy really didn't have time for all the church stuff and being in the church, because he was so focused on his dream, he was so focused on his gift, on the guitar. The one profound thing that his dad told him was that if you keep dancing with the devil, he's going to eventually follow you home. Hit me right to my core. And preacher boy, Sammy, he faced a lot of temptation. From the temptation of fame, from the temptation of woman, from the temptation of lust, lusting after things that he felt like that he needed, that he felt like that he was missing out on. And I find this pretty ironic. As we fast forward and the night is going on, everybody's enjoying the music, everybody's drinking, everybody's talking, mingling, dancing, having a good time. Preacher boy begins to perform. In this, he's luring the crowd. Everybody's enjoying it. And this is probably like one of the most beautiful, most intense, most spiritual scenes that I've ever witnessed in the movie. As he's playing the guitar, as he's playing the blues, he's playing his whole heart out. There's these, different, eras of music and dance all coming together. These different cultures of people all coming together just by, his music alone. Which goes to show me that music not only, conjures up spirits, but that also music is what brings people together. Music is the one thing that brings forth unity. Music is the one thing that brings the world together in love, in peace, in humility. Very beautiful scene. But what I also did notice was that it was through his music in which lured the vampires. These vampires, they wanted in. They wanted to join in the festivities in which they were denied access. Which came to me like, before the devil, before the enemy could do anything, we have to give the enemy access. We have to give him an open door in order for him to access. We have to give him permission into our lives. And once we give him permission, that's when we give him the foothold. And once we give him the foothold, that's when all hell breaks loose. That's when we allow death to enter into our lives. As the scripture says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. And that's, I feel like, exactly what they did, which is why they weren't allowed in. But as Mary, who was one of the lovers of the twin Stack, she went out to, consult with these, these vampires, in which led her to get bit, which then led her to be allowed in by Cornbread, who was supposed to secure the door, for her to end up luring Stack in through seduction and through lust and through that one simple act of fornication. That's where he got bit, and that's where he died. At that point, they've allowed the enemy in. At that point, they allowed the enemy to have a foothold. Not to even mention that Preacher Boy had already given it to lust. He had already given it to fornication, adultery at that, with the married woman that he was tempted by in the beginning. But what eventually led, Stack to being bitten, eventually led to a domino effect of many others to get bitten and many others to die, in which led to there were only a few people left that were alive inside of the place. But one character that really stood out to me was Remick. And I feel like Remick represented the devil. He was very alluring, he was very enticing. He was really trying to get them to come over to their side. Whether it had been using those that already got bitten to get those that were inside to come out. Whether it was using Stacks to get to Smoke. We could see that Remick used the temptations and the falsified freedom that there was of being a vampire into luring them into something that was going to bring them into bondage, that was going to lead them into captivity. And it was kind of crazy how Remick really wanted the gift that Preacher Boy had. The goal of wanting his gift so bad was to pervert it, which is what the devil does to a lot of us. He seeks and desires our gifts because he wants to pervert the very exact thing in which God has gifted to us since birth. Even before we even knew ourselves, he gifted us those gifts. If the devil can lead us to pervert them and, lead ourselves down a path of death, then by all means, he'll do so. He'll do anything he can to get us to go there. But eventually, as emotions are getting stirred and, the vampires are getting to these people, they eventually allowed the door, the full door to be open for all of the vampires to come in. And the vampires are just killing everybody one by one, to the point where the only people that were left was Smoke and Preacher Boy. Now, I know a lot of people feel like that this is a very controversial scene. A lot of people are mad about it. It is the part where, Preacher Boy is dunked into the water 3 times by Remick. And as Preacher Boy is saying the Lord's Prayer, Remick is mimicking the Lord's Prayer with him, which goes to show us it's not something we should be mad about, but it's something we should be aware about, because even the devil knows scripture. Did you know that even the devil knows scripture way better than you? He was a fallen angel of heaven, and he was the orchestrator of music in heaven. The devil's smart, not dumb. And I feel like I got another take on, Preacher Boy's gift. A lot of people like to say that, Preacher Boy's gift is what, led him in that path. It's not that it was his gift that led him into that path, because his gift was sent by God. To be quite frank, his gift was actually what got him out of that mess. And the greatest revelation I found was that even when we go the wrong path with our gifts, even if we stir in the wrong direction, God is still there with us to get us out of the mess in which we created by our own desires, which makes God's grace even more beautiful, which makes his mercy even more, everlasting. Because in fact, the way that Preacher Boy might have felt like God didn't hear him, God heard him, because Smoke was right there to stab Remick right in the heart, in which Remick not only died, but the rest of the other vampires died along with him, which then opened me up more tremendously, because I was once like Preacher Boy. I was truly all about, let me see how far my gift can take me. I never consulted God about it. Truly, to me, I never even knew my gift was sent from God. I just wanted to go my own direction. I wanted the fame, I wanted the fortunes, I wanted everything that came with it, not knowing that the devil was setting me up in a trap that was going to keep me bound forever. I was basically falling into my own death trap. But I truly think there's a beautiful lesson we can learn from this movie, is that, like I said, just because it feels good don't mean that it is good. Just because that it looks enticing doesn't mean that it's convenient. It truly shows me that I don't have to give up my gift. The gift that God has given me is an instrument of worship. It's an instrument that is used to not glorify myself but him. And that I'm willing to sacrifice any and everything just to be closer to him. I can go on and on, but that's my take. God bless.